Well, I felt at the time that cinema, at least, the movies I had been seeing.
Did you know that the man who trained in a freezing meat locker and ran up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art now parks some of the most obscenely expensive automobiles on the planet inside a garage that most people couldn't afford to rent for a single night? We're talking about Sylvester Stallone, actor, director, painter, and apparently one of the most serious car collectors in all of Hollywood. And we are going to reveal the single most expensive car in his entire collection. A machine so rare, so outrageously valuable, that even other billionaire collectors struggle to get their hands on one. Who is Sylvester Stallone? Now, before we get into the cars, let's talk about the man himself for a second. Because Sylvester Stallone is not the kind of celebrity who buys expensive things just to post them on Instagram and wait for the likes to roll in. This is a man who grew up genuinely poor, partially paralyzed on the left side of his face due to a birth complication, rejected by Hollywood over and over again, sleeping in a bus station at one point. Yes, really, before Rocky changed everything in 1976. So, when Stallone spends money on cars, it does not feel like showing off. It feels like a man who remembers exactly what it was like to have nothing, and who has chosen to surround himself with machines that represent the absolute pinnacle of human engineering and craftsmanship. There's something almost poetic about that, when you think about it. His collection spans American muscle, Italian exotics, British luxury, and a handful of machines so rare that most automotive journalists have never seen them in person. The total value of the collection sits somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million. And honestly, after you see what's in there, that number is going to feel like a bargain. Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. Right here in America, if there is one car on this entire list that perfectly mirrors the personality of Sylvester Stallone, it might just be this one. The Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat is loud. It is unnecessarily powerful for any practical purpose whatsoever. It looks like it wants to start a fight, and somehow, despite all of that, you cannot help but absolutely love it. Sound familiar? Stallone's Hellcat is finished in a sinister matte black. And honestly, was there ever going to be any other color? The SRT Hellcat is powered by a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 engine producing 717 horsepower, 717, in a car that weighs over 4,000 pounds. The 0 to 60 time comes in at 3.6 seconds, and the top speed sits at 199 miles per hour. For a car that traces its design DNA all the way back to 1970, those are numbers that should not be physically possible, and yet here we are. Now, here's what makes this car interesting in the context of Stallone's collection. This is not the flashiest car he owns, not even close, but it might be the most personal. Stallone has spoken publicly about his deep connection to American muscle cars, growing up watching them tear down city streets in an era when Detroit was still building cars with pure aggression and zero apology. The Hellcat is that tradition taken to its absolute logical extreme. You don't need 717 horsepower to drive to the grocery store. Nobody does, but Sylvester Stallone has earned the right to be completely unreasonable about horsepower. And frankly, so is this car. Lamborghini Aventador SVJ. From American muscle, we make the jump across the Atlantic to Sant'Agata Bolognese, Italy, a small town that has been producing the most visually aggressive automobiles in human history since 1963. And sitting inside Stallone's climate-controlled garage is a Lamborghini Aventador SVJ that costs more than most people's houses. The SVJ, which stands for Superveloce Jota, in case you were wondering, and yes, that is as cool as it sounds, is powered by a naturally aspirated 6.5-liter V12 engine producing 770 horsepower. No turbos, no electric assistance, just 12 cylinders of screaming Italian engineering doing exactly what they were born to do. The car rockets from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds and carries a top speed of 217 miles per hour. It also set the production car lap record at the Nürburgring when it was released, which is the automotive world's equivalent of winning an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a Grammy all on the same night. Only 900 units of the SVJ Coupe were ever produced worldwide. Stallone's example is finished in a shade of Verde Mantis, a deep, almost iridescent green that shifts color depending on the light. It is, to put it mildly, the kind of car that makes grown adults stop walking and just stare with their mouths open. The original MSRP sat at around $517,000. Current market values have gone considerably higher, because of course they have. It's a Lamborghini with fewer than 900 examples in existence. Did anyone expect it to get cheaper? Rolls-Royce Phantom VIII. Every serious car collection needs a moment of stillness, a car that isn't about lap times or horsepower figures or tire-shredding acceleration, a car that is purely, unashamedly, magnificently about being comfortable and being seen. And for Sylvester Stallone, that car is the Rolls-Royce Phantom VIII. Now listen, after spending time talking about Hellcats and Aventadors, walking into the world of Rolls-Royce feels like stepping out of a rock concert and into a five-star library. Everything is hushed, everything is precise, everything costs an extraordinary amount of money, and somehow it still feels worth it. The Phantom EBO is powered by a 6.75-liter, twin-turbocharged VB12 engine, producing 563 horsepower and 900 newton-meters of torque. But quoting horsepower figures for a Rolls-Royce almost misses the point entirely. Rolls-Royce themselves famously describe the power output of their engines as simply adequate. The car glides from 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds, which for a vehicle weighing nearly 3 tons is genuinely remarkable engineering. The interior features what Rolls-Royce calls the gallery dashboard, a full-width glass panel behind which bespoke objects, art pieces, or decorative elements can be placed. Stallone, being an accomplished painter and visual artist, reportedly had his customized with hand-selected interior elements that reflect his personal aesthetic. Because when you're Sylvester Stallone buying a Rolls-Royce, you don't pick from the brochure picks from you. Base pricing for the Phantom VIII starts at around $450,000. But with bespoke customization, which is essentially the entire point of buying a Rolls-Royce, Stallone's example almost certainly crossed the $500,000 threshold comfortably. Ferrari F430 Spider. If you've spent any time around serious car collectors, you already know that Ferrari ownership is less like buying a car and more like joining a very exclusive, very Italian club that has extremely strong opinions about almost everything. And Sylvester Stallone, at various points in his life, has been a proud member of that club. The Ferrari F430 Spider is a convertible masterpiece that was produced between 2005 and 2009, and it remains one of the most purely enjoyable Ferraris ever built. Stallone's example is finished in classic Rosso Corsa, racing red, which, let's be honest, is the only truly correct color for a Ferrari. Choosing any other color is technically allowed, but you will feel the quiet judgment of Maranello radiating through the bodywork every single time you drive it. The F430 Spider is powered by a 4.3-liter V8 engine producing 490 horsepower, with a redline of 8,500 revolutions per minute, a number that produces a sound so extraordinary that automotive journalists have run out of adjectives to describe it properly. 0 to 60 arrives in 3.6 seconds. Top speed is 196 miles per hour, and perhaps most importantly, for a car of this nature, it feels absolutely alive in your hands in a way that very few automobiles on Earth can replicate. Ferrari produced the F430 Spider in relatively limited numbers, and well-maintained examples in desirable colors now trade at auction for between $150,000 and $220,000. Stallone reportedly drove his regularly, because what exactly is the point of owning one of the most thrilling driving experiences on 4 wheels if you leave it sitting in a garage looking pretty? Bentley Mulsanne. Here's a fun thought experiment. Imagine you just finished filming the 4th Rocky movie. You are exhausted. You have been training for months. You punch Dolph Lundgren in the face repeatedly for the sake of cinema. You deserve to be driven somewhere in the most extraordinarily comfortable automobile that human hands have ever assembled. That automobile is the Bentley Mulsanne. Stallone's Bentley Mulsanne is the kind of car that makes the Rolls-Royce Phantom feel slightly rushed. It is British luxury taken to a philosophical extreme, a vehicle in which every single surface has been touched by a craftsman who spent years mastering that specific skill, and who would be quietly offended if you referred to what they do as simply making cars. They create rolling environments. There is a difference. The Mulsanne is powered by a 6.75-liter twin-turbocharged V8 engine producing 505 horsepower and 1,001 newton-meters of torque. That torque figure is not a typo. 1,001 newton-meters. The car weighs over 2.5 tons and still manages 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, which tells you everything you need to know about what Bentley's engineers were doing while everyone else was eating lunch. Stallone's example features the extended wheelbase configuration, the Mulsanne Speed, which adds additional rear legroom for passengers and a level of rear cabin luxury that frankly makes most private jets seem a little Spartan. Base pricing for the Mulsanne sits at around $350,000, though Stallone's bespoke specification would have pushed that figure considerably higher. Bentley builds these cars to order, and for clients like Stallone, the word standard is treated more as a polite suggestion than an actual constraint. Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG. Now, here is a car that keeps appearing in the garages of serious collectors all over the world. And after spending time with the numbers, it is not remotely difficult to understand why. The Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG is one of those rare machines that manages to be simultaneously a legitimate supercar and a piece of automotive history, all wrapped up in one of the most visually dramatic bodies ever to come out of Stuttgart. Stallone's SLS AMG is the coupe version, which means gull-wing doors. Those famous, impossibly theatrical doors that swing upward like the wings of a bird and make every single person within 50 meters stop whatever they are doing. Now, Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself, who we have covered extensively on this channel, also owns an SLS AMG and reportedly found the low gull-wing doors somewhat challenging to navigate given his height. Stallone, at 5 feet 10 inches, presumably has a marginally easier time, though we imagine it still involves a certain level of commitment. The SLS AMG is powered by a naturally aspirated 6.2-liter V8 engine, producing 583 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 arrives in 3.7 seconds. Top speed is 197 miles per hour. The engine was developed in direct collaboration with Mercedes-AMG's racing division, and it shows in every single rev. The exhaust note alone, and this is not an exaggeration, has been described by automotive journalists as one of the greatest sounds ever produced by a production automobile. Market value for well-maintained SLS AMG coupes currently sits between $150,000 and $250,000, depending on specification and mileage. Stallone's example, finished in obsidian black metallic, sits firmly at the top of that range. Bugatti Veyron. And now we enter a different conversation entirely. Because everything we have discussed up to this point, the Hellcat, the Aventador, the Phantom, the Ferrari, the Bentley, the SLS, all of those cars exist within a universe that, while extraordinarily expensive, is at least theoretically comprehensible to most human beings. The Bugatti Veyron exists in a different universe altogether. When the Veyron was first revealed to the world in 2005, automotive engineers across the globe quietly sat down and reconsidered everything they thought they knew about what was physically possible in a road-legal automobile. The Veyron produced 1,001 horsepower from a quad-turbocharged 8-liter W16 engine, at a time when most supercars were celebrating if they cracked 500. It had a top speed of 253 miles per hour. 253. The tires alone, custom developed by Michelin exclusively for the Veyron, cost $42,000 for a full set, and needed replacing approximately every 1,500 miles at top speed. Owning a Bugatti Veyron does not just cost you the purchase price. It costs you a lifestyle commitment to spending money at a rate that would make most people genuinely uncomfortable. Stallone acquired his Veyron at the peak of the car's cultural moment, when simply being seen stepping out of one in Beverly Hills was enough to generate headlines. The original MSRP sat at approximately $1.7 million. Current auction values for well-documented examples have risen to between $2 and $3 million. The Veyron was produced in a total of 450 units across all variants, and every single one of them was purchased before Bugatti had to resort to anything as undignified as advertising. Ferrari Enzo. There are cars, and then there are cars named after the man who built the entire religion, the Ferrari Enzo, named directly after Enzo Ferrari himself, the founder, the patriarch, the man without whom none of these conversations about Italian supercars would exist, is one of the most significant automobiles ever produced. Full stop, no debate. If you disagree, the comment section is below, but you are wrong. Ferrari built exactly 400 units of the Enzo between 2002 and 2004. That is 400 cars for an entire planet of Ferrari. Enthusiasts, collectors, racing fans, and billionaires competing for the same allocation. The waiting list was, by all accounts, extraordinarily exclusive. Ferrari hand-selected buyers based on their history, with the brand, their existing collections, and various other criteria that Ferrari has never fully disclosed to the general public because, again, this is Ferrari and they do exactly what they want. The Enzo is powered by a 6-liter naturally aspirated VIII engine producing 660 horsepower at 8,000 revolutions per minute. 0 to 60 comes in 3.65 seconds. Top speed is 217 miles per hour. The aerodynamic package, developed directly from Ferrari's Formula One program, generates significant downforce at high speed, keeping the car planted to the road in a way that defies its outrageous performance numbers. Stallone's Enzo is finished in Rosso Corsa, naturally. When the car was new, it carried an MSRP of approximately $659,000. Current auction values for clean examples now regularly exceed $3 million, with particularly well-documented cars fetching considerably more. It is, by any reasonable measure, one of the greatest appreciating automotive assets of the 21st century, and Sylvester Stallone owns one. Lamborghini Countach. We need to pause for a moment here, because this next car is not just a car. For an entire generation of young people growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, this car was the poster. Literally, the poster on the bedroom wall, the car that made 10-year-olds around the world decide that when they grew up, regardless of what career they pursued or how much money they made, they were going to own one of these. The Lamborghini Countach is not simply an automobile, it is a cultural artifact. Stallone's Countach is a 1988 LP 5000 Quattrovalvole, the final and most developed version of the original Countach design, featuring a 5-liter V12 engine producing 419 horsepower in factory specification. The wedge-shaped body, the scissor doors, the enormous rear wing, the side-mounted air intakes, every single design element of the Countach was, at the time of its introduction in 1974, so far ahead of anything else on the road that people initially assumed it was a concept car that would never enter production. They were wrong. For Stallone specifically, the Countach carries an additional layer of personal significance. This was the car of his era, the car that defined automotive aspiration. During the precise years when Rocky was conquering the box office and Stallone was ascending to the kind of fame that meant he could actually go out and buy one. There is something genuinely full circle about a man who spent the 1970s becoming one of the most famous humans on Earth, and who spent those same years dreaming about a car he could now easily afford. Well-preserved Quattrovalvole examples currently trade at auction for between $500,000 and $900,000, with particularly clean, low-mileage cars occasionally crossing the 7-figure threshold. The Countach is, quietly and definitively, one of the greatest collector car investments of the past 30 years. The Bugatti Voiture Noire. The most expensive, most extraordinary, most jaw-dropping automobile in Sylvester Stallone's entire $40 million collection. And if you have been paying attention, you will have noticed that we have already covered a Bugatti Veyron, a Ferrari Enzo, a Lamborghini Countach, and a collection of vehicles that most people could only dream about. So, Whatever is sitting at number 1 needs to be genuinely extraordinary to justify the anticipation. It is. Sylvester Stallone owns a Bugatti Voiture Noire, and if that name means nothing to you right now, allow the next few sentences to change your life permanently. La Voiture Noire, which translates from French as simply the black car, was unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show in 2019 as a one-of-one commission. One car, one single automobile built on the entire planet. It was created as a spiritual successor to the legendary Bugatti Type 57 Atlantic, widely considered one of the most beautiful automobiles ever built, of which only 4 examples exist, and one of which sold for around $44 million at auction in 2010. So, the pedigree alone is enough to make your hands shake slightly. The La Voiture Noire is powered by an 8-liter W16 quad turbocharged engine, producing 1,500 horsepower. The most powerful Bugatti road car engine ever built at the time of its creation. The exterior is carved from a single piece of carbon fiber in absolute matte black, featuring 6 individual exhaust pipes integrated into the rear bodywork in a design so dramatic that photographs barely do it justice. The interior is bespoke in every conceivable sense of the word. No 2 surfaces are the same, every material was selected by the buyer, and the craftsmanship involved a dedicated team of Bugatti artisans working exclusively on this single vehicle for the better part of 2 years. The price, 11 million euros. Before taxes, which, by the time all applicable taxes and fees were applied, brought the total cost to approximately $18 million. $18 million for a single automobile. That is not a misprint. Now, here is what makes this even more remarkable. Stallone, a man who grew up with nothing, who was told repeatedly that he would never make it, who wrote Rocky in 3.5 days in a bus station, and then refused to sell the script unless he could star in it, now owns the single most expensive new car ever commissioned in automotive history at the time of its creation. The La Voiture Noire is not just the crown jewel of his collection, it is a statement. It is Rocky Balboa walking into a room full of people who told him he didn't belong there, and winning anyway. And honestly, we would not have written it any other way. From the Dodge Hellcat all the way up to the La Voiture Noire, $40 million worth of automotive history, passion, and the kind of taste that only comes from a man who spent decades earning the right to be this particular about his cars. Stallone once said that he buys cars the same way he approaches his films, with total commitment and no interest whatsoever in doing anything halfway. After seeing what's in that garage, we believe him completely.